The night breeze whispers between the glass buildings, reflecting the city lights in a kaleidoscope of colors. I'm home, alone in my apartment on the 23rd floor, surrounded by the chaos of urban life. But now, it's just me and the city. Listening to the distant sounds of traffic, I let myself relax, thinking that a quiet Friday night in San Francisco would be the perfect remedy after a long week. The fresh ocean air and the faint ringing of the quake tower bells bring a sense of peace, until the silence starts to settle in. The clock on the wall reads 9:15 p.m., and darkness creeps in. A blue glow from my laptop illuminates the room as I click to close what I was watching. But a noise distracts me, an echo, a metallic sound coming from the hallway. Looking out the window, I see the busy street below. Cars pass by. People laugh and chat, but up here, everything seems to have stopped. That's strange, I said to myself. Must be the wind. I get up, curious. The city vibrates with an energy I can't quite place. Each step echoes on the wooden floor. The hallway feels like a long, dark tunnel, and the light from my apartment seems to shrink as I walk toward it. The echo intensifies, and for a moment, I imagine I'm not alone. My mind spins with thoughts. Maybe I'm just too tired. Work is weighing on me, I think. I convince myself this is just exhaustion and lack of sleep. But the sound persists, quieter now, like someone is trying to approach unnoticed. Passing by the bathroom, I notice the light is on. I didn't leave it on. What else have I missed? My heart races as the weight of anxiety settles in my chest. The bathroom is empty, just the reflection in the mirror and the flickering fluorescent light above. Okay, this is weird, I said to myself, trying to stay calm. It's just the light. Back in the living room, I hear a faint whisper. Helix. The voice is soft, barely audible, but unmistakable. Helix. I call out, my voice trembling with anxiety. No response. The only sound is the distant hum of the city below, indifferent to what's happening here. I sit on the couch, trying to process. It has to be a dream, I tell myself, or stress playing tricks on me. I try to focus back on my laptop, but before I can, the sound returns, closer now. The echo intensifies, a rhythm that seems to move toward me. Panic swells, and what was once a familiar voice now feels foreign, like it's echoing from a forgotten past. I jump up, deciding to step out onto the balcony for some fresh air. The city glows under the moonlight, but I can't focus on the beauty. As I'm about to open the balcony door, the sound strikes again, deeper this time. Helix. The name now a raspy whisper, echoing through the emptiness. A chill runs down my spine, and for a second, I feel like something is moving around me. My instinct screams at me to run, but I can't move. I feel paralyzed, the air thick around me. Then a loud bang. The bathroom door slams shut. My heart pounds. Who's there? No answer, but the weight of the presence grows, as if the very walls are breathing. The city's echoes vanish, and all I hear is the rapid beating of my heart and the relentless whisper, now coming from every direction. I force the bathroom door open again. The mirror reflects me, a man with wide, terrified eyes and pale skin. And for a brief moment, in the back of the mirror, I see a tall, shadowy figure. The image disappears in the blink of an eye. I shake my head, trying to dismiss it. It was just my mind playing tricks, I say, but the terror only deepens. The echo turns into muffled laughter, a sound not of this world. An internal struggle takes hold. Reason tries to prevail, but fear is consuming me. I glance at the mirror again. This time the figure is clearer, a shadow with the faint features of someone I used to know. Before I can process it, the mirror shatters into 1,000 pieces, and the laughter turns into screams. I fall backward, and the shards of glass cut my hand. Blood trickles down, but the pain is insignificant compared to what I'm facing. Quickly recovering, I rush to the front door, only to realize it won't open. I'm trapped. The echo now roars, and the figure seems to get closer. In a final act of desperation, I scream, "Get out! Leave me alone!" The roar turns into a wail, and the figure vanishes into thin air, leaving only a bone-chilling cold. Breathing heavily, I finally manage to open the door. The light from the living room greets me, and for the first time, I feel like I can escape. But when I look at the mirror in the hallway, I don't see my reflection, only the shadowy figure now smiling back at me. I wasn't supposed to be here. This city was never mine, and now it feels like I'm caught in its invisible web. Looking out the window, the city lights continue to shine, indifferent, as I remain in a world that no longer recognizes me.
The shadows stretch across my living room, and the sound of leaves rustling outside reminds me that once again I am alone in my grandmother's old house, a place that carries more history than anyone could imagine. Here every wall seems to breathe, telling stories of sunny days and stormy nights. But for me, there is an echo that resonates with a darker past. I had moved to Derry a few weeks ago, trying to escape the frantic pace of London. The silence here is a relief, but it's also somewhat unsettling. Tonight, as I settled into a sofa that has felt the weight of so many memories, I noticed the house felt different. The murmurs that once seemed like mere wind now sounded like whispers, as if the walls were trying to tell me something. Once, my grandmother told me about a tragedy that unfolded within these walls, involving a family that lost a loved one under vague circumstances. An accident, they said. A tragic misunderstanding that left deep scars. But it wasn't just the scars that remained. The very air seemed thick with indescribable sorrow. Sometimes it felt as though the house was remembering, a lament trapped in every stone. And now, as the night deepened, the darkness seemed to swallow me. The clock on the wall, an old wedding gift, began ticking with a rhythm that echoed in my ears, each tick like a step towards something I couldn't avoid. I went to the window, seeking comfort in the outside world, but what I saw made me step back. A silhouette in the street, a man or a shadow, I couldn't be sure. He seemed to move erratically, as if he were dancing to a tune only he could hear. My heart quickened, and I pulled the curtain shut, sinking back into the sofa. The house was quiet again, but not for long. The whispers returned, now more distinct. Lost words, fragments of sentences that drifted through the air. "Help me," one voice seemed to say, while others layered on top of it, a murmuring crescendo. This wasn't the first time I'd heard them. In recent nights, the echoes had grown more intense, more urgent. A chill ran down my spine, and a knot of tension tightened in my chest. What was I hearing? I stood up, determined to investigate. The house, with its dark hallways and creaking stairs, felt like a maze, increasingly ready to swallow me whole. As I moved, the shadows on the walls seemed to take on a life of their own, twisting and writhing under the flickering light. My hands shook as I reached for the doorknob that led to the basement, a place I had avoided until now. When the door creaked open, the musty smell of damp and something else, something rotten, hit my nose. I hesitated but stepped in. What I found was an old chest covered in dust, a relic of forgotten memories. Inside, I found personal belongings, faded photographs, and a diary, its yellowed pages filled with despair and pain. As I flipped through it, the weight of the story unfolded before me. The words of the woman who wrote it seemed to scream with anguish, each line a plea from the past. She described sleepless nights, the anguish of a home that had become a prison. Is not who he seems to be. One passage read, "Love can be a prison, and the chains are invisible." What I was reading was a portrait of someone suffocating under the weight of a possessive love, a life marked by secrets and deafening silences. The story became more harrowing. She spoke of broken promises and gazes that turned into daggers, always ready to cut. Tonight, he said everything would be fine. But the feeling that he would never return consumed me. Each sentence dug deeper, revealing a world I couldn't fully understand, but that wrapped me in growing dread. The whispers became screams in my mind. It was a mistake. Don't let it happen again. Terror gripped me. What was this diary in my hands? An untold story. The the sense that I was next echoed through every fiber of my being. I needed to get out of there. I had to escape this house that seemed to feed on my fear. Then I heard a sound, a soft but unmistakable thump from behind me. Something or someone was moving in the dark. I turned, the light flickering, and when it finally illuminated the hallway, I saw nothing. Only emptiness, with my breath caught in my throat. I ran back to the living room, locking the door behind me. My heart pounded, and the diary's echoes still reverberated in my mind. What really happened to that family? What tragedy truly unfolded? What did the house want from me? The ticking of the clock grew louder, more insistent, as if it were counting down to something inevitable. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the silence. Glass shattered, and the shadows seemed to close in, as if the house itself was alive, ready to consume me. My instincts screamed to run, but the door was locked. My hands shook as I twisted the knob, but it wouldn't budge. Panic set in. And that's when I saw him again through the window. The man I'd seen earlier was now there, but he wasn't just a shadow anymore. He was staring at me, his dark eyes piercing through me, as if he knew exactly what was happening inside the house. A sense of recognition washed over me. I didn't know if it was relief or doom. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Desperation took hold. The walls seemed to close in, and in one final effort, I slammed the door open. I rushed into the hallway, and the light went out. The shadows danced, the house became a labyrinth, and I was its prisoner. The only thing I managed to grab was the diary as it slipped from my hands. When I turned, the man was there smiling. What did he know? What did the house really want from me? In the darkness, the whisper turned into a scream, echoing in my mind. And in that moment, I knew that what I left behind was far more terrifying than I could ever imagine. Adrenaline surged through me as I realized I couldn't stay here any longer. Without looking back, I returned to the living room and grabbed the diary that had fallen to the floor. It was as if an invisible force was pulling me away from the house, away from the whispers and the shadows. With the diary in hand, I felt like I had a piece of the story, a connection to the past that might finally bring to light what had been buried. And so, I left my grandmother's house, the diary clutched tightly in my hand. The cold night air brushed against my face, and as the door creaked shut behind me, a mix of relief and terror washed over me. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I was determined to find out. The story was far from over.
I never imagined I'd spend another night alone in my apartment, staring out at the narrow, dimly lit alleys of Taiwan. The old streets below, with their hanging red lanterns and hidden shrines between houses, always seemed quiet. The kind of silence that creeps under your skin, making the darkness feel deeper than it should. But tonight, something was strange. I'd been hearing the drums for hours, faint at first, like a distant festival. But there was no celebration planned. Not this late, not during Ghost Month. Everyone knew better than to walk the streets after dark at this time of year. I used to laugh at those old superstitions. I wasn't laughing anymore. Those drums, I said to myself, they're getting louder. I stood up from the couch, trying to shake off the unease as if it were nothing. I'm not one to scare easily. I tried shutting the windows, locking them tight. It didn't help. The sound still seeped through, growing louder, pounding in rhythm with my heartbeat. My apartment, once a refuge from the city's chaos, suddenly felt too small. I grabbed my phone, hoping it might offer some comfort, some distraction. But the screen flickered as if it were under some interference. My heart pounded faster. I dropped the phone and looked out the window again. The alley below was empty, no vendors, no scooters, nothing but the faint glow of the lanterns swaying gently in the night breeze. But the drums persisted. I could almost feel the vibrations beneath my feet. What the hell? I muttered, trying to push away the growing sense of dread. I turned toward the kitchen. The lights flickered, once, twice. And then they went out completely. Silence. My heart raced in my chest as I fumbled through the drawers, searching for a flashlight. I turned it on, casting a dim beam of light around the room. The shadows danced on the walls, long and distorted, mocking the fragile glow. I turned toward the door, every instinct telling me to leave, to get out of the apartment and into the streets. But as I moved, something caught my eye. At the end of the hallway, standing in the shadows, was a man. No, not a man, something else. His face was obscured, but I could make out the outline of his body, tall and impossibly still. He just stood there watching me. My breath caught in my throat, my muscles froze in place. I knew deep in my gut that he hadn't been there before, and yet he felt familiar, like I'd seen him somewhere before. In a dream? No, in a nightmare. The drum started again, pounding, louder, faster. I backed away, never taking my eyes off him. As I moved, he followed. No footsteps, no sound, just a slow gliding motion. "Get out!" I shouted, my voice breaking the eerie silence. The thing stopped, tilted its head slightly, as if mocking me. Then it began to change. Slowly, grotesquely, its form distorted, limbs elongated unnaturally, and its face began to stretch. I ran for the door, grabbing the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Locked. The key. Where was the key? My mind raced. I tried shoving my hand into my pockets, my hand shaking violently, but I found nothing. Panicked, I turned back to the hallway. The figure was gone. Gasping for breath, I stumbled back against the door. My hands, still searching for the key, touched something cold and wet. I looked down. Blood, streaking the doorframe. That hadn't been there before. The drums, now deafening, seemed to be coming from the very walls, shaking the apartment, shaking me. I turned toward the living room, and there, standing by the window where I had been just moments ago, was the figure again. Only now it was closer, much closer. Its face, no, its mask, was contorted into an eternal scream, its empty eyes locked onto mine. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding, my stomach churning. The drums stopped. Silence. And then, in a voice that wasn't mine, a whisper echoed through the room. "It's time." I don't know what took over me, but I ran. Not for the door, but for the window. The alley below seemed like my only escape, even if it meant breaking the glass and throwing myself headfirst into the unknown. But as soon as I reached the window, a hand, cold and skeletal, grabbed my wrist. I screamed, but no sound came out. The thing's grip tightened, pulling me back, dragging me closer. I could feel its breath, hot, rancid, against my skin. My vision blurred, my mind flooded with panic. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. And then, as quickly as it had come, it let me go. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. But when I looked up, there was no figure, no sound, just the empty, silent apartment. I laughed, or maybe I cried. I couldn't tell. Relief washed over me, but it was fleeting. As I stood, something caught my eye in the corner of the room. My reflection. No, its reflection. The thing stared back at me, and this time it was inside me.